One. All right, you should be good to screen share, Silas. Welcome back to Food Healers, second part in the day from 7 to 9 p.m. Take it away, Silas. And great to see you all.
Yeah, I just did a slide on this SDGs, on the Sustainable Development Goals. So I call it the Trojan horse of SDGs, is this infinite growth paradigm, economic growth. You know, we need to have economic growth. Number 8. And literally, if you meet all the other goals, why do you even care what the economy looks like? Right? If you're taking care of life on land, life below water, you know, doing climate action. I mean, if you do all of these things in gender equality, no poverty, zero hunger, who cares how you did it, what the economy looks like? So I really think that this was inserted to make sure that we never change the paradigm. And so I think this is the Trojan horse that they put into place to make sure that we don't change the system too much. So it becomes like a Sisyphean task. Right?
What did I say? Economic growth? I mean,
decent work and economic growth. And first of all, I don't want to talk about work. I mean, I want to talk about play. It should be all play at this point, right? I mean, I don't consider what I'm doing as work. To me, it's play, right? And economic growth, why is that a necessity for all these other things? So I think it is a very redundant thing that they added so that you focus just on the growth. You know, everybody is trying to grow. Every nation is trying to grow its economy. And in the process, we miss out on all the other goals because you can't meet that, you know, in a finite planet. Go ahead, Jamin.
Well, thanks, Silas. Well, here's the thing. The bottom line of this whole growth paradigm, they try to make it sound like because they want everyone to prosper, but the reality is it's the bankers and the wealthy who prosper and depend upon growth, and the wealthy are constantly vacuuming up a greater portion of the pie. 1% owns over 50% of the life-giving resources. And so really that's just, and the thing is, the vast majority of governments around the world exist, it's government by the rich and for the rich, as my dad used to say. And so they're just representatives of the wealthy. And so this whole growth thing is their imperative to keep getting wealthier. It's to feed their addiction. When everything that you're saying, Silas, makes total sense. In fact, we don't even need money, much less economic growth. What we need are basic human needs being met, and a culture centered around unity and love and compassion and healing and working together and being together and treating ourselves and all of life as one. Everything that we've always stood for. Anyway, go on. Thank you. Go on mute.
No, so that was just an observation, you know, because I was looking through, someone asked me to check off all the SDGs that you're working on at Vegan World 2026 and Climate Healers. And I started checking off, and I noticed I was checking off all of them except for number 8. I didn't check off on that one. And I said, wait a minute, maybe this is the one that they put in place, you know, to make sure you don't progress. So anyway, that's just my observation. So I drew that slide where I take number 8 and make it fall off the cliff, you know. And
what does SDG stand for?
Sustainable Development Goals.
Oh yeah,
of the UN.
That don't work.
Yeah, of the UN. So, but UN, you know, if they're pushing it to every nation is signed on to it, everyone is pushing it, and so people understand the language. So when we speak that language, people understand what you're talking about. And then I think you can say, you know, if you take just number 8 and throw it out, the rest we can meet. You know, the rest we can meet, and then everyone will be happy. And then you'll be in the donut economy as opposed to an economy that keeps growing, right?
And that's one of the points that Kate pointed out, that in nature, nothing grows infinitely.
Right. Yeah.
Everything comes to demise. And so you can't have an economy that just grow and grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. It's just, it just can't even, it don't even happen in nature. And that's one of the things that I like about her work. That she's talking about trying to develop social system like it is in nature, you know, and not, I didn't pick up if she's talking about the STD, I didn't pick that up because in her presentations I've seen thus far, she did this real nice one on Obama, the French president, and another, I think Britain. They all had these terms for economic growth, but they had them coded differently. Long thing, sustainable development, I mean growth, you know, they all had them, they coded them different, but all of them meant the same thing, economic growth. Because they know they have to code the stuff. They're coded differently, worded differently, or people are going to reject it. So they try to code it into sustainability now.
So anyway, Melvin, I also wanted to thank you. Thank you for owning the vision. When you said, I think you said it about a week ago in one of the, I think it was at the Climate Healers meeting on racial justice. When you said, this is not Sailesh's vision, this is our vision. It's only when it becomes our vision that it grows, you know, that people just, yeah, you have to own it. And thank you for doing that. Thank you for that consciousness that you're bringing into this.
True that be.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so anyway, this morning I was talking about there are another 400 families that we have found in the Tempe area who are food insecure. So, and the Tempe Elementary School is collecting food for them. So we are doing like bulk purchases of rice and beans and donating to the school every Monday. That's what we're going to be doing every Monday. Until we can get this K-Mama launched and we can get a temple cooking food. So, which would be a great way to test it out, you know, if we can get the temple serving these people. They're mostly Native American families who are in this area, who are living among us, who are now food insecure.
You know, that is such a glaring inequality in an affluent town like city like Tempe.
Mm-hmm.
You got 400 families. Tempe is an affluent community.
Right.
And then you got 400 families right here. I mean, that is one heck of a statement about the inequality that exists in this country as a whole. One of the most affluent cities in the United States, a liberal city at that, and you have 400 families counted that don't have any food. Wow.
I think there are a lot more, Melvin. I mean, there are people who come to food banks and they, in Tempe, you know, the St. Mary's Church and the ICNA Relief. They're talking about boxes and boxes being given out twice a week.
True that be.
All right. Ray and Kelly have their hand up.
We're just brainstorming here for Toronto.
One of the things I wanted to bring up earlier was the example from the Sustainable Development Goals. One of them is called Life Below Water. So what is that? That was number 14. So what does number 8, decent work and economic growth, do to something like that for solutions? If you eavesdrop on any of their conversations, they're going to be like, how can we get these big fisheries to stop taking all the fish so that we can have more fish for other people? That's the conversation that they'll have, without exception. Do they have the courage to say that we should just stop eating fish altogether, when there are communities in the world that are dependent on that for their livelihood? So decent work and economic growth. So obviously those aren't the communities where we're going to start with the vegan message. That's places that we develop to. And this is part of where, we have the vegan world by 2026. We want to see half of urban development centers, people making their own choice to embrace veganism. But we ultimately want to be able to free up the ocean, liberate the ocean from the, justifications of mankind that think it's there for them. And that's exactly what that Sustainable Development Goal number 8 is. It's justification. It's the embodiment of an anthropocentrism that you can draw a dotted line to almost every problem we have. Every impact that humans have on the planet is because we feel privileged to do anything that we want. If a person wants it, then it's justified, pretty much. So we're starting to learn those limitations, but this is the United Nations with all the different departments, and all of them have different agendas. And the FAO is, bravely trying to solve that number 2, zero hunger, but they want to do it with tools of economic growth. They want to use it. They want to use animals as one of those tools to leverage people. And Sailesh has described communities in India that sell milk as a commodity, but never ever consume it themselves. So in other words, this is, again, the cities consuming things, and it's a business model that, without it, there's got to be a better solution than that. And it reflects on all the different sustainable development goals.
Yeah, I think that I'm confusing a vegan message here. Like, how do we get to zero hunger when half our land is used to raise animals? Like, I'd be curious to know. Without veganism, I just don't know how many of these are achievable.
Right. Yeah, it's the consciousness shift that happens. Right. The consciousness shift is that we are a part of nature, and we have to figure out how to contribute more to nature than we take from nature, right? And collectively, we all have to do that so that each one of us becomes an asset to nature, right? And so you don't do that by saying it's all mine, so I can extract from the other. And the other is different for different people. Some people say, Black people also my other, so I can extract from them too. Or, I can extract from the indigenous people in the Amazon or indigenous people in India. So all these others that we can then extract from. So we have this extractivist mindset that's loaded into the economic model. That's the way it is, right? And so this is why the foundation has to be this shift in consciousness, where you say, I'm here to serve nature. I'm here to serve others. I'm not here to extract from others. Right? And as we serve others, people are going to serve you too. And then you'll get enough to eat. So don't worry about that. So it's that faith that you need to have, that you can do this. That we can trust our fellow men. This is why I say that I follow the rule that the safest place to keep your extra food is in the belly of your neighbor. Okay. So if you have extra food, the safest place to store it is to give it to your neighbor so that they can eat it. And then we'll all figure out how to support each other when we do that. So yeah, I think now with the K-Mama app centered around places of worship, we are getting to a model that will bring us to that zero hunger world that we want. You know, and getting to a zero hunger world, if you have zero hunger, then people will feel a little more secure about themselves. And especially if the hunger is being satisfied with really nutritious food, you know, good nutritious food. So that should be the baseline, cheapest, free food that's available to you. Okay. And if it's places of worship that's using that food, then I don't think any government is ever going to object to us bringing our homegrown vegetables and donating it to the temple. What are they going to say? No? You know? So I think it becomes like someone who's bigger than the government is now on your side, if you can get that to happen, right? This is why I think it's important for us to promote it within the religious community, the faith community. Go ahead, Jamin.
Oh, thanks, Silas. What a great conversation. And I like a lot of the stuff Ray said, you know, about, you know, monetizing food, which is absolutely absurd. And you see, another thing is like, here, let me just give a little example from childhood. We used to, my dad and brother and I, my dad would take us up to the mountains pretty frequently, Yosemite, there in Northern California. And, you know, he would always tell us, take only pictures, leave only footprints. And so it was a matter of pride for us that we would leave the mountain, leave everything just as we found it. And so you can imagine when we're all nourished and we're all nourishing each other, and we have this light, gentle footprint on Mother, right? I mean, that's going to transform all of us from the richest to the poorest. We're going to feel so much closer together and like we're all living this new ethos, right? Which will bring us together. The fact that we're eating together and all eating the same will bring us together. And the fact that we're caring for Mother together, that these actions of togetherness, it'll be just quite simply a whole new world. And I think that what the world needs is a press conference announcing that we're doing this, that we're committing to this simultaneously with SRM. Because then you have the two bookends. You have that which is focused on supporting people and planet. People and planet. Food and cool. Simple. Really simple. Right? And I think that that combination will actually land with people and win them over much more powerfully than any single issue alone. And I commented on this 12 hours ago that, you know, when I hear of, you know, just wanting to feed people here, feed people there, you know, in a way, it kind of breaks my heart if I hear that on its own, because if it doesn't include SRM, it's only going to be temporary. We need both. Those are the two big levers that we need to throw at once. Boom, immediately, if we're going to make it. And I know Ray's smiling because he agrees with me. Good man, Ray. And you've got your hand up. Go for it.
When I was talking about the objectives of sustainable development conversations, where they say that they want to save the fish in the ocean, how can we get people to eat less fish so that there's more fish for the poor people? I was thinking of how that actually sounds like a good plan. Vegans understand a much broader plan, and we hope to get there someday. But what made it sound like a good plan? And part of it is nobody has any intention at all of saying that cities, that developed countries and people of affluence and privilege should stop eating fish. They'd never suggest that. So a vegan ethic kind of at least introduces that to the conversation. So if that were to happen, and people voluntarily self-identify as vegan, and they say, well, we're not going to eat fish anymore, and we want there to be fish for the people who have that sustenance lifestyle, until we can figure out a way to get them out of it. I don't have a solution for it, so it's a bit arrogant for me to say that everybody should go vegan immediately. But I want to find that solution. It draws pointers, almost everything that where somebody says they can't go vegan, that's pointing at some sort of social problem that means we have to fix something else too. Vegans should be fixing the problems so that everybody can say we can go vegan. So that kind of conjured in my mind, if cities went vegan, that means fish is now peasant food. Or rather, I mean, it reminded me of a story that lobster used to be peasant food. It used to be shameful to eat lobster. Now it's a delicacy, and everybody goes, oh, well, go to Las Vegas and eat these big giant lobsters for $300. Once upon a time, it was peasant food and shameful to eat lobster. So, I mean, we see how societies change. I think the vegan movement can make it so that, you are doing something good for the world, and you're making choices for yourself if you go vegan and help fish become peasant food and eventually, hopefully, liberate them off. A lot of the animal liberation movement is kind of in the farmed animal sector, so it's really hard to think about liberating fish from the fishing industry. But I think this is good ways to do it. That sustainable development goal, life below water. We want to leave them alone. That's the only way that you can grow the fish populations back. I had to stop myself. I was going to say fish stock. But that's, again, that's the language that's used in these kind of conversations.
Yeah. Yeah, there is a paper by Sophia Ochoa, Dr. Sophia Ochoa. She wrote a paper with a lot of references and basically proving that animal foods are low quality foods, and that these days you all should be eating plant foods. Plant foods are the high quality foods that we should all be eating, especially whole plant foods, right? As opposed to processed plant foods also. So I think that's and she's making that statement based on science. She's saying low quality foods because it causes diseases, right? So literally she's pointing out why it's low quality food. So I think that's the truth of the matter, and that we need to tell people. That's, if you can, you should be eating high quality food, which is organic plant foods. And that's the food that we should be making as free as possible for everybody, right? So that no one will be able to sell low quality foods anymore. Maybe there are some who are addicted who will be eating it still, who knows? But so long as you have, temple food that's free, that's organic, and that is whole foods, plant-based, hey, we were calculating actually that a nice temple meal costs about $4 per person, per meal to actually cook it. And if you have volunteers delivering it, that's the cost, right? $4 per meal. So if the temple just says, it's $8 for you to order a meal from us, a lot of people will order from them, and then automatically you'll get one extra meal so that you can feed someone who can't afford to pay. So it has the buy one, gift one already built in, with that kind of pricing. And but with temples, it's very often you see people just buying for the whole day. That's their donation that they do. That's the service they do. So they do that on their anniversary. They go and buy for the whole community. So the entire meal is paid for by so-and-so family, because that's their anniversary gift to the community. So there are ways in which the donation processes are all also built into the temple, right? But they've already figured out how to do that with people, getting people to fund their work. So that's what I'm hoping to tap into, which is worldwide, actually. It's not just, temples. Churches do the same thing. Mosques do the same thing. So you get all of the religious community, helping with this shift to a new model in which high quality food, high quality, low intensity food, it's low environmental intensity food, is literally free for people.
And it's so great to demote fish as a high quality food, because it's such a bioaccumulant beyond a lot of land-based foods, and it's one that a lot of the health movement, the ones that are fighting with the health vegans the most, are the people that think that fish is the most nutritious and valuable food, valuable fat that you'd be able to find in nature. It's just so much energy behind it that a lot of people are convinced of that. And it's kind of a global thing that everybody in every country is probably thinking it's more of a grand meal to eat fish than to eat rice or to eat maize. That's peasant food if you're eating rice, if you're eating maize. But, you're living large if you're eating a fish.
Yeah, not only is it the opposite these days, it's about time we gave fish some breathing room so that they can recover, because we have already poured so much toxins out there into their environment. They're having a hard time even breeding, and then we go and kill them and eat them. That's like adding insult to injury. So, we have to clean up the ocean. We have to do everything we can so that they will be able to survive. Otherwise, they're all going to be getting cancer and all kinds of things and dying off. Fukushima is affecting the fish throughout the world. It's spread everywhere, the radiation from Fukushima. And it's never ending. It's going to continue. So it's absolutely silly to be eating fish these days. It's... Anyway, I'm speaking to the converted here.
Well, apart from the pollution and the overfishing,
Right.
the stocks, world stocks, fish populations have dwindled so much now, and people don't realize that at the end of a salmon cycle of life, he actually goes, like the main part of the end of the salmon's life is that they travel up to the rivers that they once were spawned in themselves. But it's where they die after they spawned and everything else. They end up becoming food for the trees in the environment itself. And the animals as well now, obviously, but the greater majority end up decomposing and feeding the roots of the trees. So they go back into the land themselves as well. So it's a complete circle. That's another chain or link in the chain that's been broken as well. It's just adding to the destruction of the forests and Canadian forests and everything else.
I wanted to add a thought. So, Silas, as I listened to you talking about, telling different stories about how different communities and temples do it, right? What's inspiring to me is this idea that it's partly a manifestation of a piece of wisdom that goes like this: the best way to lead a parade is to find a parade and walk in front of it. Now, how might we apply that here? Well, there's all these efforts going around all over the world, feeding people here, feeding people there. Imagine that we put the word out that we want to honor and learn from and enter into dialogue with all of these different communities all around the world, and essentially create a network of such communities, right? So let's just say hypothetically that a certain community is doing great. They're feeding everyone this and this type of food, but they can't get it right with mushrooms. They don't know how to do it. Well, some other community can, oh, here, we're going to send you some starts. And in fact, here's how to do it, and watch this, and let's get on a conference. And like, everyone's like supporting each other, all the way to some community has a bumper crop of, I don't know, garlic. Well, you know, what community needs garlic? And then, you know, we kind of have this sort of like Craigslist of donating food and whatnot. And the cool thing is, as we do that, as these stories start to spread, it just becomes a love fest. And then for every community, I don't care where in the world, there's always pillars of the community. My dad was one of the pillars of the community of Albany, California, which half of you or more know about, just north of Berkeley. And so anything that was going on there, he got involved. If they were going to do, they were going to do this big freeway interchange, but it was a bad design, he got in there and he, you know, worked with a retired Caltrans engineer, and they worked together and they came up with a better design. And that's the one that they did. When they tried to put in a casino, he stopped it. They tried to kill him, but he stopped the casino, right? So as people learn about this and it becomes popular, they're going to be like, do we have that here? No. Are there people who are food insecure? Yes. Well, let's get right on it. You know, it's going to be a matter of pride. And communities will be helping communities. And once we've got it done, will we ever go back? No. We're going to be so happy. It's just going to go like dominoes. So that's the seed I want to plant, that we invite these communities to come join us here, that this become like a hub. And then we have different conversations in different rooms or breakout rooms or whatever else on different topics. We can do it. I don't know that anyone else is. Let's do it, right? And it's totally grassroots and it's totally decentralized and all that good stuff. We've got the 4 hours every Friday. Let's put them to work, right? And let's spread the message. All right, thanks. I see that Ray's got his hand up.
I was just Googling the Sustainable Development Goals to show Kelly. I also wanted to remember how many there were. I remember there's an odd number that it looks like they were trying really hard to get 18, so they'd have a square graphic, because that was a Sustainable Development Goal title as the 18th square to make it easier to show on the page. But as I was looking for it, I came across a tweet by Kate Rayworth and a graphic that apparently was designed by somebody in Canada, some sort of Sustainable Development Goal organization. Can I share my screen? There we go.
Oh yeah, Ray. I just got to go for it.
So here I was talking about the 17 development goals plus their little logo. But as I was searching, I found this one and I thought it looked pretty cool because it's got the planetary boundaries on the wide ring, people, dignity, justice, and a middle ring, and then a small ring at the top called prosperity. And they've got the Sustainable Development Goals color-coded. And here's number 8 up at the top with prosperity. And then I just now noticed in the it was actually tweeted by somebody, and Kate Rayworth responded, and she says it's clearly related, but still puts growth-based prosperity, quote unquote, prosperity on top. Are people and planet subordinate to that? So it's clear that she's aware that there's something wrong with that ring at the top. When we want to save everybody, but we want to make a lot of money at the same time. We want some people to get rich and be rewarded, and make sure that, you know, we have to have incentives. You know, this capitalist thinking, we have to have incentives in order for anybody to do anything good, because people aren't basically good. They're just basically greedy. This is their attitude that they're promoting. So we need this prosperity at the top to motivate our billionaires to solve the problems for us. And so much of the UN is funded by aid organizations from different countries. They just dump billions and trillions of dollars into these organizations. There's such a flow. So they are behind that number 8. But I want to point out that they've organized this in a way that's actually kind of handy. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 is the prosperity band. And, you know, hunger, getting people out of poverty is this middle band. And then the planet and animals is down at the bottom. So if we go back to that chart where you can read them properly, so 7 to 11, that's affordable and clean energy, so things that we use in the cities, right? Clean energy, decent work, economic growth, industry innovation, infrastructure, reduce inequalities, and sustainable cities and communities. So those are the areas where we want to go people to go vegan, in the secure areas of the world, the places that don't have to deal constantly with hunger, people who have the power of choice when it comes to food. So 8 is obviously the worst one, but it's kind of influencing those other ones that speak to people in cities. It speaks to environmentalists who want the affordable and clean energy and have made that a priority over everything else. Because, you know, some people have that idea that climate change is the only problem that we face in the world. And the planetary boundaries story tells you otherwise. It's one of 9 ways that we can really mess up the planet. We need to create a safe living space for humanity in 9 boundaries, not just number 7. And they don't all have to serve this idea that we grow our cities. So, but all that to say that her respond by the tweet suggests that she will be all on board with our idea that the Sustainable Development Goals aren't all created equal.
Do you know which university she teaches at?
I just got to show you guys this because I was saying to Jamin, since we stopped polluting the air, the Cloud Clan are making love to the mountains again. Oh, I don't know if you can see that. Let's see. Can they see?
It might just be it might just look like murky white, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's too bad. Oh, there you
go.
go.
There you go. There you go.
Can you see how the clouds are laying into the land there? It's like there's this connection that's happening again. And the Haida talk about the Cloud Clan that makes love to Mother Earth and rains onto her. And you can really feel the power of that today here. It's like they're laying in the clouds are laying in the lap of Mother Earth today. They are happy.
Oh, I got it here. Let me get Charlie. Thanks.
Do you find that there's more visibility in the last month than there has been in past years?
Yeah.
Definitely. And a lot more birds around too. Hi, Charlie.
Charlie,
And
welcome.
they're singing a lot, and they're.
Look what I have, which made me realize, wow, you guys.
Oh my goodness!
I gotta watch the cooking. Sorry,
Okay,
guys.
sweetheart.
See you in a
Thanks.
bit.
I was talking to a dear friend in Chile, and I was making a salad, and I was cutting radishes, and then, long story short, I was like, oh, a big light went on, and I was like, radish. I'm gonna go eat my salad and hang out with radish while I'm eating radishes in my salad.
Excellent choice. And very relevant because we're in the midst of the Food Healers segment, right?
Oh,
the
perfect.
2-hour segment, and it's the second Food Healers segment of the day from 7 to 9 a.m. and p.m. And
Sweet.
and we're talking about feeding everyone nutritious, immune-boosting, plant-based foods all around the world, and with everything from community gardens to rooftop gardens to indoor hydroponics, etc., and really just making a huge movement out of that. And then also marrying that with the imperative to do SRM, solar radiation management, to cool the planet in time, as we might have an ice-free Arctic as soon as September, right, at the rate that we're going. So, and that is a tipping point that we simply cannot afford to cross, as I'm sure everyone knows here. So anyway, we're getting all excited about it. And we got excited earlier today about the possibility of bringing in Greta Thunberg to meet and work with Kamaya, AKA K-Mama of the K-Mama app, Silas's granddaughter, who's absolutely amazing. And to really, since K-Mama is associated with feeding everyone, and Greta is, of course, associated with climate change, bring those two together, because we cannot cool the planet on an empty stomach, and we cannot feed everyone in an exponentially overheating world. So the two need each other. They go together. Anyway, that's just a quick thumbnail, or at least some of the highlights. And there's other highlights, which I'll let others speak to. Great to see you, Charlie. Welcome.
I'm just going to quickly kind of nano check in, because I'm going to check out like pretty shortly after my salad, but because I've been sort of on an epic roll of Zooming, including the sort of a little while ago finished 4.5 hours open co-op after party where I ended up DJing the breakout dance floor and met a lot of friends, old and new, and a lot of other cool things. But anyway, carry on. It's great to be here.
Awesome, Charlie. Man, good for you, and good for the world. See, you're one of the pollinators, going from.
It's only 5 a.m. over here, and if anyone wants to dance, we can do that too.
Awesome. Well, maybe a little later tonight. The night is young over there. It's only 5, so you know.
Where are you located, Charlie?
Excuse me? Well, I'm located in Zurich, Switzerland.
Where are you located? Zurich, Switzerland.
In Zurich. I'm a New Yorker and Californian, but I'm here 10 years in Zurich. Yeah.
Beautiful place. In the lake.
That's where my parents were married and lived there for a couple of years. My dad was at ETH. Working on the particle accelerators.
So what did I interrupt? It must have been in the middle of something or other. Food stuff, solar radiation stuff. I mean, catch me up. I don't know. What did I miss?
Yeah. Well, that was partly what my little thumbnail was about bringing those two together, because that's been a kind of an ongoing theme. And part of the logic being, I think the world right now is so just distraught, frustrated, and borderline hopeless that they need a solution they can believe in. They need, a story they can believe in. And I think this story of combining feeding everyone with cooling the planet, those are just like these two vital pillars, right? Absolutely vital pillars. The analogy would be there's a bad fire in a big house and a bunch of kids are in the attic. First priority, put out the fire. Second priority, medical attention for the kids. That's it. Bam, bam. I mean, it's just as obvious as that. We need to cool the planet, that's putting out the fire, and we need to feed everyone. That's just healing and caring for everyone. But whole food, plant-based, so that we also care for all of our all the animals and ecosystems, etc. So it's not just feeding them anything, it's feeding them plant-based. So really, those are really kind of more like 3 pillars, but we can pack them into two just for simplicity, right? Because we need a simple story. The new story for humanity must be simple. And so part of the inspiration is that ideally Greta Thunberg and Kamaya, Silas's granddaughter, the two of them could tell that story. Two lovely girls who are leaders in their own right, who chose to step up and lead, telling the story to the world. Can you imagine? Us being told a story by a 10-year-old about how we're going to save ourselves and save life on Earth. I mean, that's the elephant in the room conversation that we keep kind of tiptoeing around, right? Ooh, yeah, I don't know how to bring this up, but you know, life on Earth is at risk. All of life on Earth, right? It's time to address the elephant in the room. But the good news is, you bring out the elephant right along with the solution. So as soon as you bring out the elephant, you so to speak neutralize it, right, with the solution. And then if we can do that in as big an impactful way as possible, and that's where Greta would come in, or someone like her. Could be Jane Goodall, could be, you know, Charlie Bloss, could be Donald Trump. I don't know, but let's figure out what is the right combination of people, right?
You had to put me next to that guy?
Well, you know, I'm just trying to put in logical groupings here. You know, you're both New Yorkers. You know, you kind of have similar ethos. Anyway,
guilt by association. No, I'm sorry, I'm not having it.
I'm just kidding. Come on, dude. I'm freaking 14 hours into the block party, and you're DJing. And it's 5 a.m. You know, we're just kind of having fun here. It's kind of comedy hour. But really,
I think Donald Trump is comedy hour. I mean, seriously. As a New Yorker, we knew him a long time before most people knew him.
Yeah.
And he was always a jokester and whatever. And, yeah. I have nothing else to say.
Just
I have a really good salad. I could tell you what's in my salad. Anyway, just vegan.
All right. Good. So, you know, I'd really like to encourage us all to think in terms of, you know, blasting this message to the world. It's kind of like, you know, we need to get it out already. It needs to happen. It needs to blast into the global consciousness so that it becomes the conversation of the day, right? You know how, like, for us, it's been the virus, and then China, and then the protests, and then Italy, and then, you know, this and that. You know, it's like, you know, we're kind of bouncing around from topic to topic, but we keep dancing around the elephant in the room. How are we going to save life on Earth, including our own species? And it's a really short-term problem that we need to solve. And there are solutions, and let's get on it, humanity. Let's apply our collective intelligence, right? There we need you to step in there, Charlie and company.
It's actually about the wisdom then, since you invited me to step in.
Yeah.
It's beyond the intelligence, because the intelligence in itself is not enough, because it's not oriented for the good of the whole. It's a wisdom.
Sure. Yeah, I just use CSI as a placeholder, but it's all those good things, right? But again, I'm going to keep saying it until either I'm dead or until we do it. We've got to blast the message out as a single pulse, poof, right? And we need a strategy to get there. The closest thing I've seen is what we came up with earlier today of Greta and Kamaya, you know, leading a press conference, because, you know, Greta would draw the media. She's already got their attention. And that's an extremely unique and powerful position. And so perhaps maybe the thing to do, let's just brainstorm it, is that we craft an email that we send to Stuart Scott, who has worked with Greta and has a direct line, and say, you know, Stuart, here's a letter that we'd like to send to Greta. What do you think? Right? You know her better. And, you know, we, you know, subject to your availability, because he's dealing with some serious illness, you know, we'd love to bring in Professor Guy McPherson and Dr. Yatow of Harvard to, you know, so that we can all really, we need to get to, if not consensus, we need to get, you know, to a place where we can agree what is the urgent action that's needed. And we need to just really focus on that. The urgent actions that are needed are two: feed everyone plant-based foods and cool the planet through massive scale SRM. We have to do both those things if we want to survive. It's not even enough just to do one of those. We have to do both. And basically immediately, right?
Is there, I don't know if this is getting off track because we're in the sort of the food healer part, and but in regard to this bridge and the solar thing that you're referring to, and I've heard you refer to it before, but I haven't heard, I guess I'm wondering if there's a kind of quick enough capsule of what that looks like to kind of get that to scale, either in terms of time or cost or work involved or in any terms, sort of. Can you summarize that somehow?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So the most immediate thing that would need to happen, in my view, and you know, this is certainly subject to analysis and debate, but is to deploy on the order of a couple million square miles of reflectivity around the Arctic, covering dark blue ocean seawater with reflectivity. The simplest and quickest way to do that is imagine like, I don't know, 10 to a very large number of basically ping pong balls made of silica, which is sand, right? So hollow ping pong, you know, essentially ping pong balls, but made of silica, bright white. And we simply dump those into the Arctic Ocean, right? Surrounding the Arctic ice, and contained with, you know, massive oil booms, so that the ping pong balls stay close to the Arctic ice. Uncle Frank, who just joined us, hey, Uncle Frank, he's a physicist. And Uncle Frank proposed the name last night of Arctic encirclement, because we encircle the Arctic with massive oil booms and then dump in, you know, 10 to the 12 or whatever massive number of silica-based ping pong balls, which are totally benign to the environment. Will there be unintended consequences? Of course there will, right? But it's time to break out the big hoses and put out the fire already, right?
Quick question, just
yes,
about the ping pong balls. Like, what's it take to kind of make those, or how and where are they made?
So imagine some industrial process where we've got basically molten glass, right, flowing into some kind of, you know, imagine a clamshell. I mean, you've probably seen injection molding, whether of plastic or glass or whatever. So think of just like that, but on a massive, on a large scale, where we have just, I don't know, a 10-mile plant in Pittsburgh or something, just popping these things out by the billion a day, and then shipping them by barge up to the Arctic and deploying, right? Something like that. So, you know, and that's, for me, that's the most ready to go, the most obvious, the easiest to deploy. We've got the technology, right? We've been blowing glass and making all kinds of things out of blown glass at industrial scales for, you know, centuries almost. So, and then Yatow's approach, I think, is going to take a bit more time in terms of research and development, and we're out of time, right? Another thing that I think we could get some traction quickly is with thin film reflective materials. But I say start with the obvious and easiest first, which are the ping pong balls, and then complement that with ICE 911, which is an effort started by a professor at Stanford. I think it's Dr. Leslie Field or something like that, where it's silica powder, ultra-fine silica powder, bright white, that they're using to cover ice with, to increase its reflectivity and also create a thermal barrier to decrease melting, save the ice. So that's to save the existing ice. My solution with the ping pong balls is to refreeze ice, actually just globally cool the Arctic by denying the dark blue ocean Arctic seawater of photons, just reflecting those photons back into space. Denied, just like when you're shooting hoop in Brooklyn. Denied. Well, this is like that. We're denying the Earth of sunlight because we need to cool it. That's the only way to do it. Ask my Uncle Frank, renowned physicist. It's the only way to do it. Okay. Yep. Okay. Right. Confirmed. No, seriously, it's the only way to do it. I mean, if you look at it, just the physics of it, given the greenhouse gas layer that's not going anywhere in a hurry, we got to break out the big guns of reflectivity. So, other options include deploying large-scale canopies of reflective thin film material in desert regions, creating floating systems to also deploy thin film reflective over oceans. That seems like it's going to be trickier engineering-wise. The brute force method is the ping pong balls, Arctic encirclement, right? It's quick, it's probably relatively inexpensive as far as solutions go. And, we've got to support the Arctic. We lose the Arctic, we lose the planet, said the president of Finland to President Trump a couple of years ago, famously. Look, if you think back in time, let's say, think back to, 1965, and imagine someone had a crystal ball, when will we finally, cross the last threshold? Well, it could be 2035, it could be 2016. What if it's 2020? What if it's this summer, right? My best estimate is we might be fried as of fall, right? Based on everything I heard. We've got to take the precautionary principle and deal with the elephant in the room now, as opposed to next year when we might all be dead.
Jamin, can I share
oh yeah, go for it. Sure.
Let me share something for you.
Sure.
Do you all see that? Yeah,
we see it. We see the colors.
So that shows that, near the equator, say near the Sahara, you get about 300 watts per square meter as the solar intensity. Whereas out in the Arctic, it's around 50. So which means you should be able to reduce your area by a factor of 6 to 7 if you are situated around the equator. Reduce the area of the reflectors, right? Compared to the Arctic. But you will need, not just here, but you'll need something, 12 hours away, maybe somewhere in the Pacific, something like that. So you have to have coverage, so it's continuously reflecting back. Because ideally you would really want this, during the daytime, it's even more, but this is the average. The average intensity is 350 watts per square meter. So which means if you move with the sun, you even need less area, right?
Oh yeah, totally. Especially if you move it. Yeah, if you optimize it. Now, so
if you optimize it, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. So I was just going to say that, this is an engineering project, literally. Figuring out what is the best way to do this so that we minimize our the side effects and things like that, and you're maximizing the reflection back into the ether with the minimum amount of reflectors, right? And how much do you need to reflect? So let's say we need 1 watt per square meter that we need to reflect back. So then you can calculate what that would be. So the average is 130 watts per square meter. So which means you need to have reflectors, with this, you probably need 1/3 of 1% of the land area of the planet. If you do it in the area where, this is why I was surprised that Yeto was saying that it cannot be done on land. I think it can be.
Well, one comment, if I may, Silas, is there over the deserts. See what that is that's watts per square meter of sunlight that's landing, right? That's striking the earth. But in these deserts where the sand is fairly light in color, that's reflecting back a lot of that. We'd have to get the actual numbers, right? So I'm just hand waving here. Whereas up in the Arctic with the dark bluish and seawater, it's absorbing the majority of that. So we obviously we have to model it holistically by combining both of those factors, multiplying both of those factors. And I was partly, but here's the thing. Part of the reason I put so much emphasis on the Arctic is because the Arctic is in a vicious cycle right now. If we are able to, buttress the Arctic, we can save the ice that's doing the work for us in a way that we don't have to invest a penny, right? Ice that's already there is working for us for free, right? And the alternative is dark blue ocean seawater, so that's a big delta in reflectivity. If we can do that ping pong, the Arctic Encirclement Project, we can save that Arctic ice and actually refreeze it, right? And then it's an asset for every, for 6 months, the 6 months out of the year, especially in the summer when it's just getting pounded by sunlight. We need that natural mirror. So the bottom line is that we have to look at it holistically. Right.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. Similarly with the ICE 911 solution, et cetera, we just have to look at, and that's why with SRM, we need to look at all these different solutions that unfortunately people are getting attached to. This is, my solution's better than yours. Look at the recent correspondence between Ye Tao at Harvard and Dr. Keith at Harvard. They're at the same institution and they can't even agree to meet and have a conversation. So we need to form a united front, bring all these solutions together and say, look, the headline is we need SRM. Let's get that one singular message to the world.
Right.
And in parallel, we can do the modeling and optimization, Silas, as you're talking about. Sorry to hog the microphone. Back to you, Silas.
Yeah, no, I was also going to say, a lot of our built area is where it is intense, right? Because we tend to live where it's warm. And the built area, when we start putting black roofs, on our houses, we are literally just sucking the energy in and keeping it there. And I think this is why I think the idea of putting reflectors on our roofs could be substantial, could cause a substantial change in the reflectivity overall. So that needs to be properly modeled. I think Ye Tao was basically looking at averages, and he was saying that it doesn't look like there is enough there. But I think if you look at the actual intensities, you will see that there is a lot there, in terms of the built area. Because the built area is about 1% or 1 to 2% of the total land area, right? Which is about, say, 0.5% of the total area of the earth.
But Silas, does that include asphalt roads, concrete roads, and whatnot?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but mostly I think these are just, people's homes and their yards, and that's where the majority of that built area is. Less than roads.
I think you'll find that in Ye Tao's presentation to us that after he gave his talk, the idea of whiting over rooftops was discussed. And he did say that that would only make up for about 1% of the land mass area, which was totally inadequate for what we need. But he didn't rule it out. He just said it's not going. It wouldn't do any harm, but it wouldn't do the job on its own. And as for the mirrors, he said the biggest bang for the buck would be across the equator, but on the ocean because of the albedo effect. Now, he didn't rule out deserts either. The thing is that the SRM per square meter, for every 8 square meters, you're reducing a ton of CO2, compressed CO2. So you're getting your biggest bang for the buck on the equator, on the equilateral parts of the oceans, land. But also rooftop houses should be painted white. Everything should be implemented. There's no time for, okay, this one idea is the idea.
Right.
There's no one idea. It's every idea. It's all out. Let's go for it. Fucking charge over the hill. Like, everything needs to be implemented.
See, I really think that rooftop reflection, it involves people. So it gets people all involved, saying, "Yeah, I'm doing my part. I'm putting my reflectors on my roof too. So I'm part of that." And I think we may be surprised at how effective that could be, just because of the fact that you're tripling the intensity, especially in the equator, over the average. The average is like 130 watts per square meter. But if it is 350 in the equator, then you're basically getting triple the intensity as the average. Because the average is computed over the entire world, right? It's 130 watts per square meter.
Jamin, I had a quick question.
Yeah.
About the golf balls and or the reflective film, kind of those solutions or types of solutions. So what's the idea for, like, do they just stay there and or do they get collected later, or what's the idea there?
Yeah, they'd probably stay there for some time because we need the cooling. The oceans basically have just this massive inertia wheel of heat, right? They've accumulated a massive amount of heat, and it's going to take the planet a while to shed that heat, even with intensive SRM. So probably stick around for a while. Also, the refreezing of the Arctic is a longer term project. So, but then in the end, when we don't need them anymore, we'd have some process of scooping them up and probably recycling the glass or whatever, or using them for something else. Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. But anyway, back to the main mission. What we need is to bring all the SRM teams and ideas and everything else and form a proper SRM community that is willing to form a united front and that understands that the most important thing is increasing reflectivity, and it's somewhat secondary to figure out which is the best way. And it's obviously going to be a mix, so let's get on it, all hands on deck. And so part of the work is the analysis and R&D and all that, but another whole half of it is the outbound PR, marketing, lobbying, getting in the media, getting it into the public consciousness that this is absolutely urgent. An asteroid is coming and there's a way to deflect it. The way to deflect it is called SRM. And everybody needs to be talking about it. Everybody needs to be on the phone to their local mayor, congressman, senator. I mean, I'm not kidding. It's either do this or die, right?
Everyone needs to reflect and cool down.
Now, if we couple that with the food, see, the food thing everyone understands and everyone needs to get involved with anyway, right? So if we're able to couple those two together and create this exotic combination, then we have a single mission to sell, right? Let's call it food and cool, right? I don't know what else to call it. Food and cool, or be a fool, right? And so I'd rather eat food and be cool than be a fool. But anyway, just something just like this is chapter 1 of the new story for humanity. Let's fast track chapter 1 and its implementation, while together we write chapter 2 in between bites and in between paintbrush strokes, right? Well, we'll have a lot of time for storytelling and talking as we're painting roofs and deploying ping pong balls in the Arctic, all right? So
grill and chill is already taken. You wouldn't want to use that.
grill and chill. Awesome. No. But anyway, really, you guys, this is it. It's time for us to really focus on the marketing of this and the putting together of the whole of it, right? Whether it's bringing together celebrities like Greta or Jane Goodall or, or politicians, whatever. But
how much is it being written about, or sort of is there stuff we can already start to share?
The best stuff to share is stuff from Guy McPherson and Ye Tao that I know of, right? David Keith at Harvard is better known than both of those guys, but not by too much. He's funded by Bill Gates, but his SRM solution is probably the most worrisome, which is spraying a bunch of stuff into the atmosphere, right? to increase the albedo that way. I mean, it's just, but it's kind of laughable from our perspective, but it also shows the power of human attachment. You know, when you come up with an idea and you say, this is mine, I'm the first person to write about this, my idea. I mean, Ye Tao, who's also at Harvard, shared with me an email correspondence between him and Professor David Keith at Harvard. And David Keith is being all standoffish and, you know, they're
okay, now I hear you. You were talking about that before.
they're each trying to argue that they have the best
Got it.
solution. And it's like, listen, boys and girls, we need to get together and present a united front, right? SRM first, right?
So Jamin,
yeah.
Sorry, I'm gonna refer to the recording and the authorability, if you will. And because this is exactly what you just broke down there, sort of needs to literally be put down into words on digital paper. And then, you know, my approach is also to map it and literally just kind of like, you could probably just edit the transcription slightly and make a medium piece, you know, where you actually laying it all out in a very clear way, explaining the story of how there's sort of this infighting or lack of unity around the best, you know, expression of this solution, which is the solution, and just go from there. Just, I mean, maybe you just write it, or get, you know, or give me the recording in the order. I will edit it for you, and we'll put your name on there, Jamin, and let's just get it out there. Come on, let's move on.
No, I agree. Well, here's what I recommend for starters. Let me stop this present recording. Let's do a fresh recording. So we'll have a tighter, shorter piece that we can even publish as its own standalone YouTube. I think we got a great group right here. Let's just jump in and do it. So I'm going to stop the present recording. 1, 2, 3.